wandered through the darkness, wasting away. My soul was cold and homeless, dead in the grave. Like a river of life in a dry land, like a flicker of sight to a blind man. I saw the glory's light as it broke in. God of mercy and might, oh, you brought me back to life. You're the Lord of light, shining in the dark. You're the source of life, beating in my heart. You're the living hope, you're the risen Christ. You restored my soul, oh, you brought me back to life. The brilliance of your glory awakens my soul. You give me grace and mercy, I give you control. Like a river of life in a dry land, like a flicker of sight to a blind man. I saw the glorious light as it broke in. God of mercy and might, oh, you brought me back to life. You're the Lord of light, shining in the dark. You're the source of life, beating in my heart. You're the living hope, you're the risen Christ. You restored my soul, oh, you brought me back to life. You brought me back to life. You are the resurrector, you conquered the grave. You pulled me from the water, freed from my chains, and risen to live. Like a river of light in a dry land, like a flicker of sight to a blind man. I saw the glorious light as it broke in. God of mercy and might, oh, you brought me back to life. You're the Lord of light, shining in the dark. You're the source of life, beating in my heart. You're the living hope, you're the risen Christ. You restored my soul, oh, you brought me back to life. Oh, you brought me back to life. 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 Into the quietness of your grace, and away from the noise of my mistakes. Cause you lead me in ways that make me whole. Till I walk in paths that restore my soul. Wherever you go, wherever you go, I know I will follow. I will follow you. Wherever you go, I know that I will follow. I will follow you. I will follow you. Into the wildness of your grace. Away from the safety of my restraint. Cause you lead me in ways that make me strong. Till I walk in paths where I belong. Let's sing wherever you go. Wherever you go, I know that I will follow. I will follow you. Wherever you go, I know I will follow. I will follow you. Right here beside you. Everything I need. Goodness and mercy. Following me. Right here beside you. Everything I need. Goodness and mercy. Following me. Wherever you go, I know that I will follow. I will follow you. Wherever you go, I know I will follow. I will follow you. I will follow you. Wherever you go, I know I will follow. I will follow you. Wherever you go, I know that I will follow. I will follow you.
So one of the things that I've noticed about our worship experience together at Terra Nova week after week is that we sing songs to God and that we remind each other really of the truth of God's way, and we remind ourselves of that, remind each other of that, and I don't know about you, but I really need to be reminded of the truth of that song, that God is a loving leader. He is blazing a trail for me and for you, and it is a good path. It is the right path for us, and I think that as we are together today, that this is a part of being on that path, of gathering together, of leaning into God, of having our ears and our hearts open to what it is that we can receive from God together today. And so I am so glad that you came here to Terra Nova on a beautiful Saturday night. And we're in December, and it's great. And so in light of that, I got a question for you. The question is, when do you start decorating for Christmas? All right? So some of you have already maybe jumped the gun on that. Others of you have a different style. So what I'd love to have you do is to turn to the person next to you, find out their name, and ask the question of them, when do they start decorating for Christmas? Well, again, just wanted to welcome you all to Terra Nova. It's so great to be together. And my name is Lyle, by the way. And man, I'm just really just super stoked that we all are here. And we've got a really great night together. Some of you know that we've got the Sing a Song for Christmas, which happens with the kids right next door, right after this. And I know that some of you, you're pretty excited about that. And your kids are excited and also terrified as well. So it's kind of depending on where they're at. But we'll get them through, okay? And it's going to be beautiful. So, guys are going to enjoy that. Well, listen, what I've been tasked to do is to walk you through what you got when you walked in here. So why don't you go ahead and pull out the weekend program. And as you do, can you go ahead and go to the back part? This is where we begin. We begin at the back. Not really quite sure why we do that, but we do. With a Connect card. And so I like to fold my Connect card in half so that I can efficiently tear it off. And then you can grab a pen next to you and begin to fill this out. Because here's the thing, is that we really love to hear from everybody, whether you've been here a bunch of Terra Nova, or whether you've been here a couple times, or maybe even the first time. And by the way, if you're here as a first timer, we just wanted to say thank you so much for coming. It just means so much to have you here. And the Connect card is for you as well. I just encourage you for your first time, just give us as much information as you feel comfortable with on the card. That would be great. This Connect card is something that we just feel strongly about. We're in this weekly rhythm where we get a chance just to hear from people, prayer requests that we have a prayer team that will pray for that. Just check-in items, you can write those on the back of your Connect card. Maybe you got a question, we'll do our best to answer that question. That's all good too. So you'll see what to do with this. So I want to encourage you to do is to take some time throughout the course of our time to fill this out, and then we'll be getting this from you from the end. All right, so December, right? And Christmas is coming, and man, Christmas at Terra Nova, it's like this is the best month, and we have leading up here. And as you see, we've got these Christmas services that are happening, and so this is probably actually a really good time to be thinking about which one of the 4 services that you want to bring your friends and family and attend together, and that would be great for you just to begin kind of thinking about that, cooking on that. And while you're doing that, I got to tell you, I think that one of the things that to me just really makes the Christmas season here at Terra Nova really powerful is it's something that we get to do together. All right, it's something that we actually really get a chance to team together, and we get to serve the people around us at Christmas. And so to help us get that in play, I want you to go ahead and pull out this blue flyer out of your program. It just says Christmas at Terra Nova, and you'll see on this flyer a bunch of different ways that you can get involved during the Christmas season just to make these services and everything leading up to it just really wonderful for our friends and our guests that come, and just a really great season of worship. So you can go ahead and take a look at some of the opportunities, some of the teams that you can join. And I got to tell you, I think this is actually really where it's at. There's just incredible joy that happens when we decide to take God up on his offer to live an other-directed life rather than a self-centered life. And I thought about that last night when I was at the Operation Christmas Child Warehouse up in Fullerton. We had a team from Terra Nova that spent 3 hours up at the warehouse last night, and we were packing and sorting all these boxes that were going to go all over the world. The boxes that we were working on Friday night were going to Ukraine, and so that's what we did. And I just thought about the Terra Nova team that we had, because we had a blast serving and packing and working, and everyone just had these big smiles on our faces just because we just had this incredible time of not receiving, but really giving. And I think it's going to be the case too with our Christmas serving opportunities. And so I want to encourage everybody to find 1 or 2 or 3 different things that you would commit to doing. You'll go ahead and check the boxes, put your name and your contact information on this. Some of these are service time sensitive, and then we'll get this from you towards the end as well. And man, it's just going to take a big team to I think really fulfill the vision that God has for us to make this an unforgettable Christmas for our community. And so let's team together. And I know that if you decide to do that, you'll be glad that you did. All right. Well, again, just want to thank you guys so much again for coming. Really excited to kind of kick off Christmas now that we're in December in rare form with a series that I know is going to be really powerful. And so let's go ahead and begin Reasons for the Season.
Scotty, sit. Who's a good little lamb? Stay.
Well, look at that. You've outdone yourself again this year.
Didn't I?
Yeah. Oh, how adorable. Good boy, Scotty. Good boy.
Go. No, 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 no!
I love it. That's about the way it goes, right? Our best laid plans around this time of year. And man, it is that time of year. It's upon us. Merry early Christmas to you. Can I already say that? I think maybe I can. The season, of course, like officially on, isn't it? And so no doubt you will begin to see, if you have not already begun to see, the signs and the bumper stickers and the coffee mugs and the clings and the social media posts that say Jesus is the reason for the season. Right? And I appreciate the sentiment, the thought behind that statement, because on the one hand, if there had been no Jesus, there would be no Christmas. I mean, that's kind of true. Like, so just on a basic level, but often the sentiment goes a little further than that. Often it's a little bit more like Jesus versus the commercialism of the season, or let's try to keep a sense of reverence in the season of Christmas, which, for myself, I really resonate with that as well. And I agree with that too. But if Jesus was correct, and if his first followers were correct, it may actually be more accurate to say that we are the reason for the season, that you are actually the reason for the season, and I am the reason for the season, because if we weren't such a mess, if we weren't all such a mess, if this world wasn't such a mess, there would have been no need for Christmas, for God so loved this messy world and messed up, broken people like me and like you, that he actually moved towards us. He was drawn to us, not repelled from us, which is an amazing thing to think. And so maybe, I don't know, this might go a little too far, but maybe it's time for some new clings and some new signs and some new Christmas ornaments that say, and I don't know, this might sound a little narcissistic or even sacrilegious, but might say something like, I am the reason for the season. Right? And you might get an ornament like this and like hang it on your tree, and then when your neighbor, your friend comes by and they're like, really? I mean, John, even for you, that's a little over the top. You're like, no. You don't understand. See, if I wasn't such a mess, if we weren't all such a mess, there would have been no need for Christmas. And again, that might be like a really bad idea, but if you like the idea, the ornament is already designed. And if you want one, I will hook you up. Just write ornament on your Connect card. I'm serious, and I'll take care of you. But maybe that might be a little too much, or maybe you might come up with a sign or something that says "My boss." Maybe I have a difficult time at work, like you get really frustrated with your boss, and you just stick that in your cubicle. And he walks by, and he's like, "Yeah," and you're like, yeah. You are the reason for the season, buddy. Or maybe you get really specific. It's like Stan in marketing. Like that guy, I can't stand the guy. oh, but he really is the reason for the season. Or maybe around this time of year, you have a lot of family dynamic challenges, right? There's a lot of family drama. There's a lot of tension and disagreement. And so you just make yourself a little sign that you hang somewhere in your house that says, my family is the reason for the season, right? Because, and here's the point, and it's truly this unbelievable idea that God so loved this messy world and was drawn toward us in the middle of our mess to do something for us, to restore and redeem and rescue and deliver us. And Christmas really was and is for us, for our benefit. And so during this series, during the next 3 weeks, we're going to take a look at 3 of the reasons why. Like, why in the world would God do that? Why in the world would God move towards us if he could have avoided the mess? And he certainly could have avoided the mess. Why would he not? Like, why Christmas? Why, really? What is the reason, or the reasons, if you will, for the Christmas season? And the first of these reasons comes to us by way of the story of Christmas, or more specifically, the story behind the story of Christmas. Now, you might be familiar with the Christmas story and Mary and Joseph and the shepherds and the wise men and so forth, but you may not be as familiar with the deep cuts. Like, you know what I mean? Like the backstory, the old story, the backstory of Christmas, because the Christmas story didn't actually begin with a young couple wondering how in the world they got pregnant. The Christmas story actually began 2,000 years before that with an elderly couple who were convinced that they never could get pregnant. And the backstory of Christmas is one of the things that I think makes the Christmas story itself so remarkable and so beautiful. It's a story that begins in an ancient past with a world that was made to be good, and it's turned dark and broken and disconnected, and a creator God who loves it so much, whose heart breaks with the brokenness, and a remarkable promise that this God makes 2,000 years before Christmas to a very unremarkable man named Abram, or Abraham. In fact, the writer of Genesis puts God's promise this way. He says, the Lord had said to Abram, go from your country, your people, and your father's household. Now understand, just put a pin in that right for a second. This was not done in the ancient world. In fact, this was not done in most places in history. Kids did not move away from their parents. They didn't move across the country to buy a bigger house and have a higher standard of living. That was never done until very recent history for lots of reasons, a very different value system. They valued rootedness and their connectedness to their family and community much more than maybe standard of living related issues, but especially for security. And I don't mean financial security. I mean actual physical security, because it was dangerous to do something like this. A person's security, in fact, their very identity was to be found in their clan, in their tribe, in their country, their people, and their father's household. And God is saying to Abraham, I want you to leave everything you've ever known. I want you to leave your roots and go. It's like, go where? And this is the part I really love. It makes me chuckle every time. To the land I will show you. Like, what? That's a little vague, don't you think? It's a little loose on the edge. Like, I'll tell you when we get there? Really? I mean, there's not a lot for Abraham to go on with this. Like when he gets home to tell Sarah, his wife, that they're leaving, like, pack it up, honey, we're out of here. God told us to leave. And she would ask a very reasonable question. Leave? You want me to leave my family? Like, where are you taking me? To which Abraham says, yeah, I don't really know. God just told us that he would show us when we got there. I think wives tend to like a little more detail on things like that. Maybe it's just my wife. Maybe it's you as well. And God asked, you think about this, God asked Abraham and he asked Sarah to risk everything and step into extraordinary uncertainty. And in exchange, God makes Abraham a promise. And here's what he says to Abraham. And I will make you a great nation. And now you got Abraham at the time is an elderly guy. He's an older guy. He and Sarah, his wife, have no children. And he's probably thinking, great nation. I would settle for just someday being a great grandfather. I mean, that would be more like that's unbelievable enough. I will make you a great nation. And then God goes on, and I will bless you, and I will make your name great. Now think about this, just for a second. That actually happened. That actually came true, that Abraham's name eventually became great, so great that thousands of years later, all around this world, most people have heard of and know who Abraham is. I mean, that's amazing. That's incredible. But it's what God says next that sets up the stage for the Christmas story. And here's what he says next. And you will be a blessing. In other words, other people will be better off because of you. There are people who you've never met and who don't even live yet, whose lives will actually be better because you lived and because of what I do through you. In other words, this blessing, as I bless you, isn't just individual and it isn't just for you, it is instrumental. And it's for others. As I bless you, it's actually instrumental, which, by the way, God's blessing always is instrumental. It's not just for us. And so like this Christmas, if you're feeling like #blessed and there's some good things happening in your life, a great question to ask yourself is, who else is this for? I mean, it's for me, and that's fantastic, but it's never just for me. Who else is this for? Anyway, that's when God says exactly who is going to be better off and going to be blessed because of Abraham. And this is where it just starts to get just so unbelievable and really incomprehensible from Abraham's perspective and almost kind of nonsensical, because here's what God says next. And all peoples on earth will be blessed through you. Every people group, every tribe, every clan, every ethnicity, every people group will be blessed, Abraham. Now, this isn't just, to say this is countercultural just doesn't go far enough. This isn't just countercultural. This is much further out of the box than just countercultural. In this cultural moment, nations did not bless other nations. Ethnicities, people groups did not bless other people groups. The ancient world was an extraordinarily violent place. If you've ever read anything out of ancient history, it puts just an exclamation point on that. It was extraordinarily violent, extraordinarily ethnocentric and xenophobic, and ancient people did not bless other tribes, other clans, other people at all. In fact, here's what they conquered other people. They enslaved other people, they plundered, they hated, they definitely feared other people, but they did not bless other people ever. And God gives Abraham this unbelievable, incomprehensible, really impossible to even think of promise that someday, Abram, all peoples on earth are going to be blessed through you. In other words, every person on the planet will eventually be positively impacted by what is about to happen to you and through you. Good things will come to their lives through your life. And though it was unbelievable and seriously incomprehensible, there's no way he could have even wrapped his head around what that might have meant in that moment, and frankly, kind of impossible, we're told that Abraham actually believed him. Abraham actually believed, and though he would not live long enough to see either his name become very great or the people on earth to be blessed through him, eventually he and his wife Sarah do have a son named Isaac. And then Isaac has, two sons actually, Esau and Jacob. Esau is the older son, and frankly, the family line should trace through Esau, but Jacob, the younger brother, was a con man. He's like a schemer. He's like this nefarious sort of person, and he actually deceives his older brother Esau out of the birthright, the right to be the firstborn, and he kind of steps into that place and kind of, weasels his way into that place. In fact, there is so much family dysfunction in this story, in the story of these generations. It is so bad that you should read it. And you should read it around Christmas. I think so. Like, we should all read this story around Christmas because it will make you feel better about your family. It will. I mean, I don't know how bad your family situation is, but it will make you feel better about your parents. Like, my parents aren't so bad. I thought they were maybe they're not so bad. My siblings, they drive me nuts, but they're not that bad, because at least they haven't sold me into slavery yet, which, by the way, is what Jacob's sons do. Jacob has 12 sons. The 11th of them is named Joseph, and Joseph becomes Jacob's favorite again. Very dysfunctional. And his 10 older brothers hate him so much that they actually sell him into slavery. And by the way, that was a concession. What they wanted to do was kill him. They were going to kill him, and they were like, no, we probably shouldn't kill him. Let's just sell him. And so they sold him into slavery, and Joseph is taken into slavery to Egypt, and there is not a lot of blessing going on. There is not a lot of blessing going on even within their family. Well, eventually, the entire family ends up in Egypt, where actually for like a blink, a nanosecond, they really are a blessing. But because in the ancient world, people did not bless other people, people feared other people, people attacked other people. As this clan begins to grow and grow and grow, it becomes feared by the leaders of that nation. And so they become subjugated, and they are made to be slaves, a slave nation. And generation after generation of Abraham's offspring will be born and die as slaves in slavery. And as these stories about Father Abraham would be whispered around campfires or retold in huddled corners, maybe they would wonder, like, what? Blessed? We would be blessed? We're supposed to be a blessing to every people on earth? What's that even mean? How in the world could that possibly ever happen? Well, generations later, God raises up a deliverer for his slave nation. You've heard of him before, I bet. His name is Moses. And Moses leads this slave nation out of slavery in Egypt. And by the time Moses gets finished with Pharaoh in Egypt, they're not feeling very blessed. And then they enter the promised land, and the people who live there are not feeling very blessed either. And eventually, 1,000 years after Abraham, his family does become a kingdom known as the Kingdom of Israel, led by a warrior king named David, who subjugates and conquers all of the surrounding nations, and they're not feeling very blessed by him. And in fact, over the years, rather than blessing the nations, they become like the nations. Rather than blessing anyone, they just become just like them. The gods of the other nations, the superstitions, the practices, the economic practices and political and spiritual practices and social and moral practices, the abuse and treatment of the weak and the disfranchised and the poor, over and over, they just become like everybody else. And within a couple of generations of David, the kingdom is ripped in half. There's a civil war, and their influence, their ability to ever be a blessing to anybody just kind of tanks. And it would seem as though this promise made centuries ago to some distant relative of ours, that must be some kind of just myth or legend, or maybe somebody meant well, but it will never, ever come to pass. We can't even bless ourselves. How can we bless anybody else? And yet, in the middle of all this, there were these courageous figures who stood against that moral tide, known as the prophets. And the prophets again and again declared, and I love it because it's really kind of defiant. It's just kind of this punk rock movement where they're just like against the tide, saying, God has not given up. God actually hasn't given up on us, and they held out hope, and they challenged people to live up to their destiny, to be who they really are, to live into that. And so, for example, 300 years after David, in this moment of national crisis, I mean, if you can just kind of imagine the scene, the invincible empire of Assyria, massive armies from northern Iraq are marching across their land, and they are just destroying and slaughtering everything and everyone. And it looks for sure like certainly this little kingdom is about to get wiped off of the mat, as many other peoples are being at this time. And in this cultural moment, God speaks through the prophet Isaiah. And these words, they're not just words of incredible vision and hope. These are words of defiance. And God says through the prophet Isaiah, I will make you a light to the nations. I will make you a light to the nations. You know what a light is? It's like clarity and vision and enlightenment and like truth and hope. I will make you a light to the nations so that my salvation. Now, Isaiah is writing and speaking in Hebrew, and the word is literally Yeshua, so that my Yeshua, my salvation, my deliverance, my rescue would be felt to the ends of the earth through you. And they must be thinking, light to the what? We are in darkness ourselves. Our whole nation, our people are in the dark. How are we going to be light to anybody else and salvation for anyone? Like, we can't even save ourselves. How would we bring salvation or deliverance to anybody else? And Isaiah is saying, God has not given up on this promise. God hasn't given up on his promise. He loves this world and he wants to rescue it. Now, if you know your ancient history, you know that shortly after this, the Babylonians conquered the Assyrians, and they carry away the best and the brightest of Abraham's offspring into captivity and into exile, and they destroy the city of Jerusalem. They just demolish everything. And then shortly after that, the Persian Empire conquers and destroys the Babylonians, and it's like empire after empire just sweeping across the land, and it seems like all of Abraham's descendants are just pawns in this greater game. They have no power. They have no influence. They become disheartened, disappointed with God, angry with God, no sense of destiny, and definitely no sense of being blessed or of blessing anyone else. And 1,600 years after Abraham, God sends another prophet about 300 or so years after Isaiah named Malachi. And Malachi's words in this moment are so unbelievable. And again, I keep using this word incomprehensible because people, I'm certain, could not even understand or wrap their heads around what it might have meant. Impossible in the moment. As I was reading these words, I was thinking of like things that parents say to their kids when their kids have really messed up and just kind of blown it and failed, whatever. And you know what parents say, like to try to prop them up. We say things like, you'll get them next time, honey. And, don't give up. Don't stop believing, right? You like try and try again. You're never a failure if you don't stop trying. And we try to say these things to like encourage or prop up. And our kids are probably thinking, yeah, I don't think so. Like, I don't know. I could only hope, like maybe. And here's what Malachi says to Abraham's descendants. He says to him, speaking for God, he says, my name will be great among the nations. It will be great among the nations, from sea to shining sea, from the place where the sun rises to where it sets, from horizon to horizon. My name will be revered. My name will be great in every place where people worship, in every place where people bring incense and offerings. They are going to bring incense and offerings to me because my name will be great among the nations, says the Lord Almighty. And it is such an unbelievable thing to say in this particular cultural moment. And if the people could have responded, I'm sure they would have responded by saying, no, it won't. No, it won't. Are you kidding me, Malachi? God, your name is mocked among the nations. Your name is irrelevant among the nations. Your nation, our nation, is pathetic. We can't defend ourselves. We can't protect ourselves. We can't feed or take care of ourselves. No one in this world is looking at our nation going, hey, let's go worship their God. They got something going on. No. Zeus's name may be great someday among the nations. And eventually Jupiter's name will be great among the nations. And oh, by the way, buckle up, because Alexander is about to sweep across the nations and his name will be great. Literally, they will call him Alexander the Great. His name will be great, but not your name. Why would you think that? And the people of God enter this long season of disappointment and darkness and futility and despair. And as the Greeks conquer the Persians and swept over the world, depositing Greek culture and Greek language and Greek thinking everywhere they went. And then eventually the Roman eagle rises to the west. And in 63 BC, Pompey, the great Roman general, walks into the temple in Jerusalem, rides his horse up into the temple, walks into the Holy of Holies where only the priests are supposed to go, looks around to find where this God is and sees nothing because these people have no idol, no image, and he just thinks, this is sad. This is pathetic. And Pompey annexes their homeland and it is now a part of the Roman Republic, and the people wait. And they wait and they wait for hundreds of years in hopelessness, praying in darkness, Then in 49 BC, a very popular Roman general named Julius Caesar does the unthinkable. Some of you know about this. He leads his army from victories in Gaul. He leads them across the Rubicon, the river, into the city of Rome itself, which was not to be done. Generals were not supposed to bring their armies ever into the city. And the traditionalists, the Republicans, are furious, and they assassinated him, which if you remember your high school literature, Shakespeare, Julius Caesar, you know the story, right? Et tu, Brute, right? And this turns Rome into this very bloody civil war. The entire Mediterranean is engulfed in it, from which emerges Julius's adopted son, Octavian, who is now declared the emperor of a newly forming empire, and he takes upon himself the title Augustus, which means like the majestic one, the sacred, the revered one. Talk about some megalomania, but he isn't done yet. Check this out. Then shortly after this, in 42 BC, the Roman Senate votes that Julius, who had been assassinated, is actually a god. And from now on, whenever Julius's name is mentioned, he will be referred to as the divine Julius Caesar. And Augustus is quickly to pick up on the fact that if his daddy is a god, that makes him son of God. It's like, hey, this is good marketing. And so he takes on the title, he uses it all the time, son of the divine Julius Caesar, or for short, Divi Filius, son of God. Augustus Caesar, son of God. And Augustus's court poets and historians would then weave a tale of Rome's 1,000-year history that reached its pinnacle, its climax at last in Augustus and in his empire. And they wrote of the birth of Augustus as the birth of a new child through whom peace and prosperity would spread through the world. And this message was carved in stone by his propagandists known as evangelists. They would carve this in stone on monuments and inscriptions all around the Mediterranean. Good news, they would write. Good news. We have an emperor. Justice and peace, security and prosperity are ours forever, because the Son of God, referring to Augustus, the Son of God has become our Savior, the King of the world. And if you had asked anyone in the Roman Empire in this moment, from Germany to Egypt, from Syria to Cilicia to Spain, who the Son of God might be, the answer would be obvious, the politically correct answer. The obvious answer would be, well, Caesar Augustus, of course. He's the Son of God. And if you had asked anyone in the Roman Empire what God would be worshiped from where the sun rises to where it sets, the obvious answer would be, well, Jupiter would be worshiped from sea to sea, or maybe Apollo, Augustus's patron deity, but certainly not ever Abraham's God. And three things in this moment are crystal clear. The nations would not be blessed through Abraham, and his offspring would never be a light to the nations, and their God would not be worshiped throughout the world. And that's what makes the backstory of Christmas so remarkable. Because when things were as hopeless as they could possibly be, when God's promise to Abraham was as far out of reach as it would ever be, God acted to fulfill his promise for the world. The Apostle Paul, looking back on this long, long history, putting the whole story together, he writes it this way: when the set time had fully come. When the set time had fully come. In other words, when everything was finally the way it needed to be. When everything was finally the way it needed to be, an expansive empire exporting a common culture and a common language, a highway system that connected all of the major cities in dozens and dozens of nations, a port system that connected all of the seaports of the Mediterranean. And in fact, sea travel becomes safer than it's ever been. And the famous Pax Romana, the peace of Rome, bringing this degree of peace and stability and safety between nations and tribes who had been warring for centuries, if not millennia, making travel safer than probably it had ever been in all of history, a mechanism and a means for a message or a movement to actually spread across the nations when the set time had come. In other words, when things were as hopeless as they could possibly be and more ready than they had ever been. when things were as hopeless as they could possibly be and more ready than they had ever been, when the set time had fully come, God sent an angel, Gabriel, to Nazareth, to a town in Galilee, to a virgin pledged to be married to a man named Joseph, a descendant of David, and the virgin's name was, and you know what? Everyone knows what her name was. Isn't that amazing? Around the world, most of the population knows who that virgin was. The virgin's name was Mary. And the angel went to her and said, "Greetings, you who are highly favored. The Lord is with you." In other words, the Creator God, the God of your ancestors, the God of Abraham and Isaac and Jacob is for you, and he is with you. Though no one has felt like God was for them or that God was with them for a very long time, he is with you, he is for you, and you will conceive and give birth to a son, and you are to call him Salvation, Yeshua. Jesus. You are to call him Yeshua or Salvation, and he will be great, and he will be called. Now, just imagine how these words would have resonated around the Roman Empire as Luke's biography of Jesus is copied and spread, and as people read these words, and he will be called the Son of the Most High. Not Octavian or Augustus, not Nero, not Vespasian, not Hadrian. He will be called the Son of the Most High and his kingdom. Not Rome's kingdom, not Octavian's kingdom, not the so-called eternal kingdom. His kingdom. His kingdom, a different kind of kingdom, an other's first kingdom led by a very different kind of king, an other's first king who would lay down his life for his followers instead of the other way around. His kingdom of sacrifice and love and grace and redemption and healing and wholeness, it will never end. And so ends the backstory to the story of Christmas, with all its twists and turns and interruptions and dead ends and hopelessness and it'll never happen, never gonna happen. And through this remarkable, what I think is just a remarkable story, the backstory of Christmas, at Christmas, we're reminded that though God may seem silent, he is never absent. Though God may seem silent, he is not absent. Though he seems silent, he is not still. He is always up to something, and he is always up to something good, something redemptive, something beautiful, something that blesses the world. And that is true for every single one of us. For each of us, for our own story, like if we could see it, if we could only see it in our moments, right? Those places where it just seems like God has grown silent, maybe in your life. Or maybe this Christmas season you find yourself in a valley, in this broken place, or maybe grieving a loss, and it just seems like the world feels very dark. That God is never absent, even when it seems that he's silent, when our circumstances argue to the contrary, that God can actually be trusted. He can be trusted, and you can lean in. Instead of lean away, you can walk into who he is and what he's doing because he's always up to something. He's always up to something good. And that's true for every single one of us and for all of our stories. But it's not just true for our story or our own story, like individually and personally. It's always true for everybody else. I mean, that is part of the point of this story. As with Abraham, when God shows up, it's never just for us. It's never just about us. It's always, always, always for others. And for me, as I read this story, I got to tell you, the backstory of the Christmas story, it raises a question. In my mind, it's kind of a challenging, even provoking kind of question. And the question is this: if the arrival of Jesus was a blessing to the world, shouldn't Jesus' followers be a blessing to the world as well? If the arrival of Jesus was a blessing to the world, shouldn't Jesus' followers be a blessing to the world as well? Are we? Am I? Are you? Are we collectively? If the world was to be better off because of Jesus, shouldn't the world be better off because of his followers? Is it? Or you could put it this way: if Jesus was the light of the world, shouldn't his collective presence, our collective presence, make the world a brighter place? Does it? Does it matter? See, I think it does. I think it matters, and I bet you think it matters too. In fact, regardless of where you are in your spiritual journey, I bet this matters to you as well. And by the way, this is why we do so much of what we do around Terra Nova. This is like shaping who we are, our sense that if Jesus had come to bless the world, then our presence in the world should make the world better or be a blessing as well. It's why Lyle was just talking to us about this Operation Christmas Child drive we just did. Hundreds and hundreds of shoe boxes packed with cool like gifts and things for kids around the world, in this case to the Ukraine. Or coming up in 2 weeks and 2 Saturday nights, we're doing this thing called Miracle at the Mission. We're partnering up with the Orange County Rescue Mission's Village of Hope, where we're gonna, on Saturday, December 16th, so that's 2 Saturdays from now, where we're gonna help them put on this really cool event. In fact, you can read more about it right here. And we're building the teams for this right now. And if you wanna be a part of blessing in this way, just write Miracle somewhere on your Connect card as you're filling out that Connect card, and you can throw that in the offering basket in a little bit. It's why every single month, and really actually more than even once a month, we're rolling out some way that we can collectively serve our world, our community, our next door neighbors, the city of Lake Forest, to bless our world as God has like blessed us or done things for us, to bless the world that God loves so much, because we are not just content to believe things about Jesus. That's not enough for us. We want to actually follow him. We want to actually follow him and embrace his ways. It's why so often at December, we roll out something called Rack Your Neighbor. It stands for Random Acts of Christmas Kindness. I know, really super cute, right? Random Acts of Christmas Kindness. And in your program, you have this flyer that looks like this. And here's how it works. Because there are people who are in your life going through something, going through certain difficult things, and they could use blessing. They could use something that lifts them or helps them or encourages them. Maybe it won't fix all of their problems, but it will just be a blessing to them in this moment. And so here's what we want to have you do over the course of the next couple weeks. Take this flyer, and here's how it works. You begin by writing your name and how to get a hold of you, because you are the one that's doing this. So this is for you to do, and then we get behind as a community and help you. And every year, somebody fills this out and says, John, I feel like you should do it. Of course you do, right? I feel like everybody else should do this. I just don't know if I should do it, and it's like, hey, that's fantastic. Glad you feel that way. But this is actually something for you to do. And so if you have the thought put on your mind, maybe you should be the one that kind of steps out a little bit and actually does it. And so you write your contact information. Tell us a little bit about the person and what's going on. And then here's the fun part, where you get to pray and dream and just think and imagine, maybe discuss with the people who are closest to you, like, what could we do? What could we do that would just be cool and surprising? There's a wow factor. It would just be a beautiful way to bless them in the middle of what they're going through. And then you write that down and you come up with, I think here's what it will cost and here's how I'll get it done. And then you write that on there. So maybe you think, they're going through so much, I don't know what they have this year, but I would love to buy a Christmas present for every single one of their kids, and I'll do it. Like, I'll go the shopping, I'll wrap them, I'll do the thing. But if like I could get a good sized gift card to Walmart or something, I would go and I would buy that and I would do that for them. Or maybe you're like, I want to get pick up some supplies from Home Depot to help them rebuild that thing that broke down in the backyard or on their patio. Like, I bet that would really help them out this Christmas. That feel like a gift that would be a blessing to them. And you go, here's what I think we could do, and this is my idea. Or maybe their cars, they have a flat and they can't afford a new tire, or whatever it is. And you go, this would be cool, and we could do this. And then you just write that down, and you give us the idea of how much it'll cost, and you throw that in the offering basket before you leave. Maybe you have an idea already, or maybe you need to take this home and chew on it and dream a little bit and think about it and bring it back next week. But here's why. Because the arrival of Jesus was to be a blessing to the whole world. And shouldn't Jesus's followers be a blessing to the world as well? And we would go, of course, of course, of course. It's one of the reasons for the season, because at Christmas, God blessed the world with a different kind of kingdom, led by a different kind of king, a kingdom of peace and love and grace and generosity and truth and justice and hope. And wherever and whenever his followers come together to live out that kingdom ethic, to be citizens of that kingdom, the world is a better and blessed place. But to bless the world was just one of the reasons that God gave us Christmas. Don't miss next weekend for part 2 and the second reason for the season. Let me close this in prayer. Heavenly Father, I just want to take this moment to thank you. To thank you for loving this messy world, and really, let's make it personal, just my own messiness, my own messed up life, for loving us, for loving me enough. That you were drawn toward the mess, drawn really into the mess, not repelled from it. And that you came into our darkness and into our hopelessness to do something for us that we could never do for ourselves. To bring light and truth and grace and enlightenment and hope and rescue and deliverance, to save us so often from ourselves. I just want to say thank you for that. Thank you for Christmas. And I pray for myself, I pray for all of us in this room, that we would be people who would align with that and go, if that's who you are, Heavenly Father, we're in. If that's what you want to be to the world, then that's who we want to be to the world as well, because we will follow you. And I pray that in Jesus' name. Amen. Well, hey, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I think some of you know there's this Sing a Song of Christmas happening next door in just a minute. The kids, most of them are already there. It's going to be super cute. They're going to be singing Christmas songs or hot cocoa, Christmas treats. So we're going to head next door to the high school room in just a second. By the way, if you got really little ones like toddler and nursery, you'll need to pick them up in their classrooms first and then meet us over in that room. But as we're heading out, I want to remind you of that Connect card that Lyle was telling you about. And we love to connect with everybody every week. Love to hear from you. If you're guests, thank you so much for spending part of your weekend with us. As you're filling this out, if you would like more information or just want to jump into that Miracle at the Mission and be a part of what we're doing at Orange County Rescue Mission in 2 Saturday nights, write Miracle somewhere on this Connect card and we'll get you into play for that. And of course, you can drop this in the offering baskets on the way out. You can drop the See One, Serve One Christmas team flyers that Lyle was telling you about in the offering baskets. And if you're already ready for a Rack Your Neighbor idea, you can drop that in the offering basket too, or you could just work on it at home and bring it back next week. And of course, you can drop your offering envelopes in those baskets as well as giving online and on the app, as many of you do. And then please join us next weekend. In fact, if you got anything out of what we talked about today, bring somebody back with you for part 2 of our series and a parents' night out that we're doing on Saturday night. That's going to be super cool. Find out more information about that in the program too. God bless you guys. See you next door and then back next weekend for part 2 of Reasons for the Season.